Hey everyone, welcome to the Last Life Ever podcast. I'm Jillian Sidoti, and this
Yes,
is
you
Jen
are.
Colt. Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Hey, do you like my new beard?
I know you have no beard. You look so thin. You've been losing weight. You're like wasting away.
No, I'm not wasting away. I assure you I weigh about the same as I did last week at this time, which is better than going up in the last week. But I
No, but
can't
since
lose
the beginning of the year, you've
oh
lost some
yes,
weight.
yeah, I have. Yeah, I've lost about 15 pounds since the beginning of the year. But that is way off topic for our show today, Jillian, because we have a guest and we definitely want to bring that person on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who do we have on the show today?
So Dustyn Montgomery is probably one of the most impressive young men I've ever encountered. 23 years old, has walked across Sierra Leone as a means to bring, and gosh, on International Women's Day of all days, to bring awareness to the plight of women in Sierra Leone and just the plight of people in general. And he's going to talk to us all about why he did that and what he plans on doing next, right after this.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Hey, Dustin, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Jeff, I hope you don't mind, but in a split-second decision, I decided that I'm going to stream live to my own Facebook and to the Last Life Ever page as well, because I feel like this topic is so important that we, especially on International Women's Day, that it's so important that we should be talking about it here on as many channels as we can. So Dustyn, how did you get into deciding to do something where you're, first of all, most people don't even think about doing something for their own country. How did you get into Sierra Leone?
For sure. So it all began during my senior year of college, which was the fall of 2019. And I had been wanting to study abroad most of college. And so I took the decision to engage with the program that was still within my own city. And it was focused on environmental justice and the link between injustice environmentally and injustice socially. And looking at two communities here in Minnesota, North Minneapolis and South Minneapolis. And in that program, one of my professors at the time was this man named Hindolo, who runs a nonprofit organization in Sierra Leone. And so I was first presented the idea to travel to Sierra Leone during January of 2020. And so that was the first time I went. I had not taken a big trip during college, and I have always wanted to travel somewhere that no one I know has ever been in my family or in my life. And so Sierra Leone sounded like a great place to explore and go alongside someone I knew and trusted, and they were doing good work there. And so I went during my senior year for about 2 weeks and had a great experience. But as many of us know, traveling 2 weeks can only show you so much, let alone in a foreign country somewhere so far away in the world. And so came back home, and I still think it's weird that I was traveling in 2020 before the pandemic hit, because the world was normal, and then I came back to the US and everything got crazy. But during that time in Minneapolis, as many people know, there was a murder that occurred on a man named George Floyd. And that whole event took place no more than 2 miles from my house. And as we know, that sparked national outrage. I mean, just across the highway from where I lived, the military was set up, and there was helicopters just down the street about 2 miles. The police precinct was on fire. So it was a very surreal experience having that happen in my own backyard. And during that summer of 2020, I worked with Hindolo at an urban farm here in St. Paul, and he brought up the idea that there is an issue in Sierra Leone that he believes needed to be addressed.
Mhm.
And now what Hindolo does with his organization, and I can go more into this later, but it's a primary focus of early childhood development, focusing on 2 to 5-year-old children. In June of 2020, there is an event of a 5-year-old girl who was raped and murdered in Sierra Leone. And as any of us know, no children should be in a position of rape or abuse of any type. And so he brought this to me when we were working and just said, I run this preschool. You've been there. You've seen it. How can I continue doing this work without first addressing that there are young children of the age of which we are teaching and are being abused? We need to do something about this. And so Hindolo and I drew inspiration from a man named Terry Wills, who walked 1,000 miles from Alabama to Minnesota this summer in honor of George Floyd and to raise discussion and awareness about police brutality in America. And so he came up with the idea that let's walk across Sierra Leone to raise awareness about rape and gender-based violence. And I always joke with my friends that it at times is a bit of a weakness of myself, but also a strength that I have a hard time saying no to anything, especially things that are crazy and out of the ordinary. And so he said, let's walk 315 miles across Sierra Leone. And so I
just wish I knew you before, because I would have walked with you. That sounds amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously great cause, doing something that's, really raising awareness and probably some money too, I'm guessing, for protecting these women and children, which is fantastic. But the experience itself would almost make it worthwhile, even if it didn't have a great cause behind it. I mean, just
absolutely.
Having traveled a little bit in Africa, actually around the same time as you, last January, I was in Africa as well. It's just a completely different place. And then to get out of the tourist areas and just walk across the country, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is okay. So he said, look, there's this problem and there's people walking for police brutality here in the United States. And I'm not saying one issue is worse than the other, but there's other issues in the world. And can you help me bring awareness to those other issues in the world? Is that basically how the conversation went?
Absolutely. And the big thing that really got me is I had already been to this country. I had already been and built relationships with people in this community. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I felt that from my experience of going to Sierra Leone with Hindolo, that is a place where he was raised. He himself has experienced the immense amount of trauma in that country, living through the Civil War. But still to this day, it brings people back to show him his country, his culture, and things like that. And so, since the first time that he brought me, I always felt like this is someone I want to work with. He's very like-minded in the things I do. And yeah, I mean, it's an issue that I have been aware of and passionate about, but it was more so, it's an opportunity for me to learn. And that was one of the big important things of this walk is, yes, I did walk 315 miles. Yes, we did raise awareness for issues of rape and gender-based violence. But no, we did not have the answers. No, we do not still have the answers. It's a long process to tackle an issue like this. But with our very first steps of this being the first walk, I think it did leave a pretty big impact.
I know that you and your professor did this walk, but there were other people that walked with you as well. I've seen photos of groups of people. How many people actually made the entire walk? And did people just sort of show up, or how did that all work?
Yes, so it was only Hindolo and I that made the entire 315 miles. In some of the major cities, there's 4 major cities in Sierra Leone: Freetown, McKinney in the north, Bo in the south, and then Kenema in the east. And we went through all those cities, and we were working with different organizations, essentially saying hey, this is what we're doing. Your organization does similar work around these issues. Would you like to partner with us? Would you like to support us? And so when we were in Bo and in McKinney and in Freetown, we had different organizations who would meet us there, who would bring a crowd of people who work with their organization and other people, and they would walk with us. And as we came across the country, the crowds only got bigger and bigger, which that alone, that was a very cool life experience to physically see as our steps increased and as we got further along the country, the movement was indeed building.
So, okay, so the movement was building, but what is it that needs to change? Where do you think the change really has to happen?
From my own experience, from what I saw, the issues are everywhere. You know, we were in villages of 100 people all the way up to Freetown, which is 3 million people. And we saw everything in between in terms of population size. But it didn't matter where we went. Every single village we went to, every single city, we heard the same stories. We heard the stories from women who have been attacked, who have been raped. We heard of stories from 6-year-olds, from 8-year-olds. We heard a story from a 4-year-old, just horrible, horrible
God.
things. And it was the same everywhere. And so, you know, as we're going across these communities, we're having conversations. We're not just walking by and just being like, hey, like, this is what we're doing. Every single night we would sleep in a village, and we would have conversations with the community leaders, as well as hold conversations with women to have their voices heard on this topic. And one of the big things that we are trying to do is set up dialogue conversations around this topic of masculinity without violence, and really starting to have conversations with the youth, because, you know, one, it's easier to target youth with a new idea or a new way of thinking. And as Hindolo said, you know, he grew up in Sierra Leone, and he said, he's like, through all the indigenous practice, through all of the culture, never once are we as men taught to treat women poorly or to do this or to do that. We are only taught to love and respect everyone. But yet there's a huge issue here in this country that continues.
So where did that come from? Is it just like, where is it coming from then, if that's the case?
You're talking about where is the issue of rape stemming from?
Yeah. Like, if they're not taught it, if they don't know it, how are they coming up with the idea to do it?
We learned a lot about this on our walk. And, you know, my perspective going into is, you know, I come from Minnesota. I come from the United States. I'm a college kid. I've heard many stories in college of friends and of girls who are abused. And usually there's certain intentions that come with that. In Sierra Leone, the intentions of, you know, sexual desires and things like that are part of the cause of rape. Also, there is a lot to do with the culture and a lot to do with religion that also plays a role. Things that I have never heard myself before, but things on the topics of having, you know, fresh blood or like taking someone's virginity is seen as like an act of power in that country. And so, you know, there's things like culturally that, again, you know, I understood, but it's still taking me time to process, you know, what is the root cause of this issue? The other big thing is not a lot of these cases ever go reported. In 2018 and 2019, there's 3,000 reported cases. And of 1 in every 4 cases, usually one goes unreported. So that's a huge amount of error. And that comes from corruption within the police systems there, but also in these small communities, the chiefs, which essentially act as the mayors, they are the leaders. Same with the religious leaders. And there's a lot of compromise that happens. And we saw this a lot in the villages, that we would talk about these issues of, you know, 2 children have been abused and they have been raped. And instead of going to the police with this, there was, you know, there was conclusions and there was settlements made between the families that don't involve the police or don't involve all the community figures. And so again, a lot of this ties back to cultural and indigenous practices and the overlay between that and like modern police practices and stuff like that.
Okay. So what conclusions did you get to? Any resolutions in any particular villages, any action steps that anybody is going to take in order to improve the situation?
Yes. So this idea of having these dialogue sessions, masculinity without violence, that's kind of what we're working on as an organization. These next couple months is coming up with kind of an idea of how that training is going to look, how we plan to implement it in the schools, and how we begin to have those conversations with young boys, both in primary school as well as secondary schools.
Wow.
Also engaging with community leaders. And so with those circles that we had every single night in the villages, speaking with the different women and community leaders, every village we went to, we took down information of women as well as men in the community who wanted to be kind of the leaders for their community on these issues. And so that's what we're hoping to do now, is roll out these trainings that begin discussing the topics of gender-based violence and others.
If I understand correctly, you're saying, hey, we made these relationships during our walk. We stayed in all these villages, these towns, the cities, and we're gonna build this program out and share it with those people that stepped up and said, hey, we want to help solve this problem. That sounds like a very ambitious plan, but I mean, I think it sounds really great. So what could, what can Jeff and Jillian do? What can our audience do to help with this process?
The biggest thing that you can do at this point, and both Hindolo and I have been kind of brainstorming, because our office or the organization is based out of Minneapolis, but we primarily do our work in Sierra Leone. And so the question begins is, how do we engage people here in the United States? How do we get people, hearing about these issues, hearing about these things, and also wanting to be in support and in the service of these things? And we do, as an organization, Sierra Leone Foundation for New Democracy does everything grassroots through fundraising and things like that. And as you said about the walk earlier, how we probably raised some money. The funny thing about the walk this year is it came completely out of Hindolo and I's pockets. We talked to countless organizations and essentially just asked for money and support, but did not receive any money, which was expected. But in order to run these programs, it's about $100, I would say, for like a 3-day weekend workshop with a community. And money goes a very long ways there. And so a lot of it comes down to fundraising, as well as just keeping up with our social medias, and really learning about the situation yourself. Because as I've said to many people, even though I was the one with Hindolo that walked across this country, I don't fully understand this issue. I don't know if I ever will. I'm very much still in a state of learning about how this issue exists and how it works and how it acts within this country.
Why not go to France and eat cheese and wine for your study abroad? Like, to me, that sounds like the way you do study abroad, not necessarily. This is amazing. This is so, and I'm sure you're used to hearing this. I'm sure people are saying to you constantly, wow, I'm amazed. And I'm wondering if you might want to come over and mentor my kids and give them some purpose in life. I don't know, because you seem to know what you're doing, kid. Like, this is pretty awesome. But, I don't want to just, give you praise. I want to do something about it. And so, Jeff, I think what we need to do, there's 2 board members here. I already
vote. I'm voting yes already.
All right.
You don't have to ask.
We're going to support 5 of your upcoming weekends. We'd like to make that donation from the Last Life Ever Foundation and get that going, and then figure out a way we can support you going forward. Human trafficking, we're talking about things that are happening in specific villages and staying within the village, but human trafficking to me is the worst crime. It's worse than murder. It's one of the things that I support on a very regular basis, particularly in Africa, because I think it has the least amount of resources to help stop it there. And so we would like to commit to 5 weekend courses going forward for you.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Jeff, I'll let you take the next question. Or do you vote? Oh, sorry. We have to take an official vote. Yeah. Official vote. Last Life Ever board. We don't have quorum, but we're going to vote anyhow. I say aye.
Okay. I cannot vote for the other board members, but I can assure you that the board will support this cause. And even if they didn't, Jillian and I would do it ourselves. So it would happen no matter what.
Yes.
What do you think the timeline looks like? Like, when are you going back to Sierra Leone? And when do you think you're going to start rolling these programs out?
So Hindolo and I right now are both back in the U.S. I'm unsure of when Hindolo plans to go back to Sierra Leone. He goes usually once or twice a year. But our hope is to begin rolling these programs out within the next month or so, to begin rolling them out during the summer. The school years run a little different over there. So kids are in school at different times. But that's ultimately our goal. And even more so following up, Hindolo and I are planning to do another walk this year. Because the big thing we did also after and during the walk was, relationship building. We met with all these organizations, and we don't want it to just be SLF&D and Hindolo and Dustyn working on this issue, because it's going to take more than that. It's going to take a lot of people working on this. And so with those contacts and those relationships we built, we received a lot of recommendations of not only do this walk again, but do it during the 16 Days of Activism, which is a worldwide recognized period of time that focuses on sexual gender-based violence. And it's huge in Sierra Leone because that is a huge prevalent issue there. And so they recommended that we come back sometime in October, maybe into November, and begin the walk there. This time we are planning to go kind of a different path than we did this time, to hit the villages and the communities that we missed the first time, and also increase our mileage up to about 520 miles.
So how long did the walk take you? That's something we didn't talk about.
Yeah, so we started on January 6th and we finished on January 27th. We walked 20 days. We stopped one day just because the final ceremony was organized for the 27th. And by like the 5th or 6th day of the walk, we're like, that's perfect, we'll make it there. But then we were ahead of schedule by a day. And that's the funny thing about it, is when we were planning, you know, Hindolo and I thought, we're like, okay, 315 miles, we can do that in 30 days. That's just about over 10 miles a day. And even thinking, I'm like, walking 10 miles is quite a long ways. And, you know, Google Maps is not always the most accurate, especially in West Africa. And so we kind of had rough estimates as to like, well, it looks to be 12 miles between this village and this village. But we ended up walking an average of 16 miles a day. We ended up walking 24 miles 3 days, and one day we walked 30 miles. So it really varied, and it was just a lot of walking.
So yeah, I would imagine that some of that was tiring after a while. Like, you say you just did this a couple of months ago, then, right? So you just finished like a month and a half ago,
Yep.
which is crazy because we're still in a coronavirus world, right? Like, it's hard to travel. You said at the beginning that you had gone just before coronavirus, and then now 1 year later from your first visit, you're back for essentially a month. How did that work? Was it difficult to travel and get there and get back?
You know, I've traveled a little bit before in my life through college, not a whole lot internationally. The only place I've been other than the US and Canada is Sierra Leone. And so, you know, with flights and stuff, things are different. But I kind of assumed this going into Sierra Leone, but right as I got off the plane and was taking the ferry over to Freetown, it became pretty evident that coronavirus doesn't seem to be an issue or really even prevalent in Sierra Leone. And I would even go as far as to say that I wouldn't really say that coronavirus even exists in Sierra Leone. The main reason I believe this is because of the climate. I think it just has to do with that virus does not thrive in warm environments, because just with the way the city is built and the way that people live, people are in very close proximity, even closer than we are here in the US. And so in theory, coronavirus should probably spread to everyone there. But I think it's just because of the temperature. And, you know, they have formalities like testing when you get into the country, and there's certain places where you have to wear masks. But I always joke, you know, coming from the US, life in Africa is very different from here. But in the sense of living life how it once was, being in crowds, being next to people without masks, there was a sense of normalcy being overseas this time.
That's interesting. Yeah, and everyone I know that lives in sub-Saharan Africa, at least East and West Africa, told me that there really isn't a huge problem with coronavirus. I know some people question the testing and stuff, so I have no idea.
For sure.
But it is interesting, right? That some places it seems much worse than others.
Well, this has been incredible, Dustyn, and I'm glad we're going to be able to support you. And this is just amazing. It's amazing you have such purpose and focus in life at such a young age, and just benefiting so many women and children out there, particularly children that could use this kind of support. And who knows how the future looks for the women and children of Sierra Leone, but hopefully that this will just put this in such an amazing direction. I can't see how it won't, especially if people were, open to your ideas. But one last question for you. Did you get any opposition to what you were doing? Were you ever fearful that people weren't gravitating towards your message?
You know, that was definitely a fear, and something that we didn't necessarily plan for, and we are kind of just going to go with how it went. But I would confidently say in almost every single village that people were open to the idea. People were very grateful to have one, not only people doing this, but also they were very supportive of us being men in doing this walk, and supporting them in this way. And a lot of them just said, continuously, it's just, we don't have the resources to do these types of things. That's where we need the help, as well as the guidance and the structure and those things. And, we would have, I would say most of the, and I won't even call it disagreement on the issue. I think it was more so from a lack of, misunderstanding, and viewing the issue differently in their own experience as it pertains to their communities and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, Jillian, I know you said that you had one last question, but I actually have one which I think is really important, and that is, where can people in our audience go to find out more information about supporting this cause?
Absolutely. So the website is slfnd.org, and that has all the information about Sierra Leone as an organization, the work we do with our preschool, the work we do in sustainable agriculture, as well as information about the walk. And then also with my own personal work, I'm posting most of the footage of the documentary of the walk and different footage that I took throughout my time there, on my own personal YouTube channel.
Okay.
Did you say SLFND? So I want to just do that for those of you that are listening on the podcast. S is in Sam, L is in Lima, F is in Frank, N is in Nancy, D is in dog.org. So make sure you guys go out there and support Dustyn. Our guest today has been Dustyn Montgomery, walked across Sierra Leone, 23 years old. And you think you've done stuff with your life.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, right? Like, it's unbelievable, right? I get that, like, you had, and I apologize. What's the professor's name again?
Hindolo.
Hindolo? Okay.
Yep.
Hindolo. I get that you had Hindolo's, influence in talking about this issue, but the idea to just hear something and just be like, yeah, I'm going to go work on this.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for doing that. And I want to share your personal YouTube as well. This is a link that's not particularly useful for people because it doesn't that. But if they go to YouTube and search for your name, I'm assuming that they're going to be able to find you.
Yes.
Okay, great. And we'll try to put this in the comments too, the
sure.
YouTube link and the link to your organization when the show actually posts live. So thanks so much for being here. Jillian, do you have anything else?
No, but thanks everybody for sticking to our podcast this week, and we'll be right back to wrap up the show. Thanks, Dustyn.
Go. So, Jillian,
I'm depressed.
Yeah. Okay. So that was depressing. In fairness,
I know I'm depressed.
You got this huge.
What have I done with my life?
Yeah,
and there's huge problems out there.
Yeah, huge problems, and we're not fixing them. And then we got somebody like Dustyn out there, just like, okay, I'm gonna go fix this problem. And that makes me a little jealous. It makes me sad. I had this idea when I was in high school to do a Middle East peace walk where I walked all the way around the Mediterranean from North Africa all the way through. Well, I was going to start in Spain and walk to North Africa. And I should have just done that because apparently that idea works.
Okay.
I could have won a peace prize or something.
Would have, could have, should have. We'll win a peace prize for something else.
Yeah.
That was absolutely amazing.
Somebody can take my idea and do that, and I'll not begrudge them the peace prize. If it works for them, it's fine for me. But no, I mean, seriously, like, super impressive to make that kind of commitment. And, we've interviewed people that I've started charities or been intimately involved in charities before, but they've always had like a deep connection, right? Like Mike Pearson lost his son in Afghanistan, or the other Jeff Holst who lost his child to pool drowning. And those people, like, they had a visceral connection to that, right? Mm-hmm. And Dustyn he just heard about the problem and he was like, I'm going to go do it.
It's incredible. It's truly incredible.
It's unbelievable. And he's an extremely impressive person.
Well, I'm glad we can help. Last Life Ever Foundation can help with sponsoring a couple of events so he can get the education out there and trainings out there. So at least we can do that from the comforts of our own homes in the United States of America.
Right. And we can go walk with them in October. If you're bored, Jillian, we could just go for a walk across West Africa.
I get bored with these 3 kids around. But anyhow, listen. Everybody, be sure to go check out slfnd.org to support Dustyn and his efforts. I think it's really important. And then before we leave today, before we wrap up, there's another thing I want you guys to support. And one of our Last Life Ever members, Richard Burradinelli. I always screw up his last name, so we're just going to call him Richard B. Richard B's daughter, Leah, passed away several years ago. She was 13 and by all accounts was an amazing little human being. 13-year-old little dancer, just awesome human being, and was really into acts of kindness. And the day that they celebrate her life is on March 16th. That's Leah's Life Legacy Day, and we're all called to do an act of kindness or several acts of kindness on March 16th. And so, Last Life Ever audience, I want you to participate in this with us to honor Leah and her family and her life legacy by doing an act of kindness on March 16th. And we even have a t-shirt for you. It's in the comments.
Yeah, and March 16th is 1 week from tomorrow if you're watching this live, but it is also the 1 year anniversary of Last Life Ever.
It is. Yes. So,
and, so we support kindness. So it fits out really well. And we would like people to participate and also get the t-shirt, like you said, because it'll raise awareness for the idea of being kind, which is something we're a big fan of at Last Life Ever.
And it will also honor Leah and her family. And, and the thing is, too, a lot of us don't have purple T-shirts. It happens to be a purple T-shirt, which was Leah's favorite color. So if you would be so kind as to go on over and purchase one of the T-shirts, wear it on March 16th and join us in doing an act of kindness.
Yeah, and I also don't have a purple T-shirt, so I need to get myself on that because people need to order it soon if they want to get it by March 16th.
Yes, please. Yes, please, everybody. So
go order it right now. The comment is out there. You can find it. You can also go to the Last Life Ever website and find it there by clicking on the shop shop. That's the one.
Shop. Yeah.
So click on the shop in Last Life Ever and you can find it there as well. So, and also Jillian's really cool hat. So you can buy the hat.
Oh yeah. You can buy this hat. So you can be all Last Life Ever now.
You can be like a full Last Life Ever thing.
I just got to get some pants.
I think there's another t-shirt on there too. Like you could have like a long sleeve Last Life Ever t-shirt
with wardrobe
right over and then put the purple shirt over top of it.
Oh my God.
It would look really bad though, so don't do that. Just wear them different days. March 16th, raising awareness for Leah and her family and acts of kindness. It's very important. So anyway, I think we should wrap up the show, Jillian, unless you have anything else.
Yes, I want to remind everybody to live the best version of
Wait. I got something else. I just realized there's something else. There's something I really want to do this, and we have a couple minutes. So if it's all right with you, I would like to bring on a special guest.
Oh, a special guest.
Yes, and I haven't told her either. So I don't know which one
There's only possibly one special guest. There's only one person backstage.
No, I know, but the problem is I don't remember which one of the ones her audio works on. She doesn't have audio. She's muted right now. You got to unmute yourself. Hello, Veronica Childs.
Oh,
You fell away. I just wanted to bring Veronica on a second because I wanted to thank you for being so awesome. You're putting out banners and like making us this cool new backdrop today. Thank you for that. Doing all the backstage stuff at Last Life Ever, and people need to know you're awesome.
Yeah, we look spiffy now. We look.
I know. She made me shave. She was like, "You need to shave. Your beard's getting out of hand." Oh wait, no, excuse me. That was my other wife.
Wait, hold on. I'm your
He has
other
a hair
wife,
now.
and then
Yeah.
so what is like Veronica your wife, and then I'm your other wife, and then your other wife is actually your wife? Is that how it's?
Yeah, actually, my actual wife does not like it when I shave, to be honest. She's not a fan. She says I look weird. So I probably will have a beard back in like 2 or 3 weeks. Because that's how that works.
Anyhow, yes, Veronica, thank you so very much for all our spiffiness now.
Spiffiness, yes.
Jeff, now do you want to end the show?
No, I'm going to let Veronica do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Veronica, what would you like to remind everyone?
With the best version of your last life ever.
Close enough for me.
Never gonna take my freedom. You're never gonna